Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today, and many thanks to the NASIG Autumn Review Committee for having us. I'm Jim Kalwara, and I'm here with my colleague, Lauren Seney, and we work at the University of Colorado Law Library. We are happy to be presenting on Maintaining Serials and a Next-Gen LSP, Library Services Platform. Today, we will be sharing some suggested workarounds that address limited serials functionality within next-generation library systems and how library-specific or local-level workflow modifications can enhance user experience. We will also discuss some of the challenges to getting system-level functionality improvements for serials workflows within the LSP when it may not be a priority for all institutions using that platform. Lastly, we'll discuss how you can position yourself to advocate for better functionality for serials workflows, despite it being a lower priority.
Migrations are hard, and the lack of standardization of some types of data, such as orders and prediction patterns, can make the management of print serials all the more difficult. We are in a law library and still maintain a significant number of print serials across a variety of formats. We do have journals, but for us, the most significant challenges can arise with loose leaf, annual and biannual bound supplements, pocket parts, and the publisher's frequent changes between these formats. We migrated from Millennium to Folio in June of this year, though we spent the entire year trying to develop and fine-tune workflows. The constant changes in our government and legal processes has necessitated the serial format of many legal publications. While the active attorney or government official needs to have the most current information, a researcher or someone working through a family will may be looking for a historic version of the same information. This has created a wide scope in collection development policies for serials, as well as a number of challenges when it comes to sharing the library's complete holdings of a title, since what worked in a legacy catalog and discovery system may not translate well in a next generation system. Developing a serials workflow in this new system required us to take a deep dive into the data we were recording in our legacy system and what was happening with it in the public display.
As part of the deep dive into our serials data, we had to also consider how our legacy serials records and processes already included specialized workflows to make sure we were communicating recent receipts, holdings, and other unique aspects of legal publications. As a law library, we knew the importance of being able to display serial titles with massive item, volume, supplement counts, and what versions of those our library held. So it was important for us that an LSP had functionality that could accommodate these nuances. However, serials functionality development for Folio was not given as high a priority as other apps and functions. With this LSP, everything was done from scratch, so there was only so much capacity to develop functionality for each version of Folio that was released. So in our initial go-live release of Folio, serials management was quite piecemeal for us. This was drastically different from our previous legacy system, which did have a dedicated serials module that allowed us to comprehensively process and maintain serials. So these included things like receiving, claiming, creating holding statements, bindery preparation, and even the ability to link out to our online catalog in order to preview how updates would appear to the public. Another difference between our legacy system and Folio was that Folio does not have its own OPAC. With this, there is no system functionality that allows you to directly link to the online catalog. So when we were in the planning phases for our migration, we had a very limited period for experimenting with our Folio test site, and therefore, really didn't get to see how things would look in our test online catalog, ViewFind. This also made it difficult to envision how holding statements would display to the public using our catalog. With this, we knew we would have to establish some workaround methods to ensure that we could effectively process serials.
Being not only a specialty library, but a small library, MARC holdings had not been implemented at the law library. When it came to our migration, this left us with a significant amount of cleanup, but made some decisions easier in our new system, which supported MARC holdings, but also had its own original holding statement fields that the MARC data fed into. In our legacy system, we had created what we called holdings items that were item records with a start date and for current serials, an open-ended closing date. Our legacy interface also had serial check-in cards that fed into the public catalog to show what the latest receipt was. Our new system does not have these cards, nor does it have a direct connection with any receiving data into Discovery. It also doesn't currently display publicly any items that don't have barcodes, such as our holdings items. Our solution to this was to develop standardized language for each type of serial and began the process of cleaning up our data by adding holding statements to each serial as they are received. We're using the system's holding statement fields, which don't require the specialized format of MARC and are more accessible to the non-cataloging serial staff. It's a slow process, but one that is providing brief and accurate information to our front-end users. And once the statements are set up, requires little maintenance as each new piece is received. In a system that strives to be metadata agnostic, our hope with this is that using the system-specific holding statements will be advantageous for future platform updates. Our current practice is somewhat click-heavy, as the serials receiver must navigate through multiple apps to include all of the necessary information. And the initial setup for each serial is tied directly to the order record, which means if we make a mistake on the front end, we need to back up to the order to be able to resolve it. We met with several institutions that implemented Folio ahead of us to decide on a workflow, which was ultimately a combination of what others were doing. What you see on this slide is the 3 apps that are needed to get the serials information into the system, the orders, receiving, and inventory apps, and the 4 different screens it takes to make the appropriate edits. And we feel our process is fairly streamlined given our small staff. All of these backend interfaces do come together well to display clear information to our patrons, which can be seen here in our ViewFind catalog. It's also interesting to note that we share a tenant with our main campus, who held a session during this conference discussing the challenges of migrating serials data. We migrated from separate systems and ultimately didn't map data in the same way. One big difference is that they had MARC holdings to move, which had different downstream impacts from maintaining the statements that we have. We also have a much smaller staff than main campus in what, at least to us, feels like a more streamlined workflow. This wide variety of workflows within the realm of serials is somewhat concerning for all of us, since each upgrade to Folio modifies different functionality, and the serials functionality was underdeveloped in the beginning. There are big changes coming. But before we talk about that, some of the areas of Folio that still need attention deal with the intricacies of serials, such as how to handle claims for materials that don't arrive and processing materials for the bindery. These are areas where legacy systems vary significantly in their workflows. However, concentrated efforts have begun to move the development of this functionality forward in Folio. When it comes to handling claims, we're adding notes within Folio when we claim something, as well as maintaining an external list for claim follow-up. Coming from a III system, we were not required to have an order record tied to every serial title. In Folio, at least for now, an order record is required to be able to receive items, which we are addressing as titles are encountered. This also means we couldn't map receiving history into Folio, nor could we have any predicted receipt dates added to the system. This spreadsheet, which is an export of the Millennium Serials check-in cards, is what we're using to fill in those gaps instead of running to the stacks to check in on every title. It's slow going for the first time a title is encountered, but is vastly improved the second time an item arrives. Binding is also a process where we're using a workaround and creating items without barcodes for everything that is being sent out. This allows us to track the items that have been sent as well as to add notes as to when they should return. This works for us for now, though it is likely not the long-term solution. With this in mind, it's important to think about what can be learned from a migration and how things can be improved. So with that, we're going to wrap up by talking about ways to advocate for change, specifically within an open source environment.
One of the goals of Folio is to establish a truly community-driven and open source product where librarians, vendors, and developers can have a voice in how functions are built up. This can be found in the Folio community structure, which consists of a community council, a product council, and a technical council. These councils work together to direct product development priorities, which is no easy feat. There are also special interest groups, also known as SIGs, which exist to support the product council in reaching its goals. Involvement can be as simple as showing up to one of the many SIG meetings, joining their dedicated Slack channel, and sharing your feedback, observations, and questions with the group. If you're interested in more details, please visit the link on this slide. It is also equally important to know which other libraries are participating. If your collections mirror other library collections, or if your library is similar to another library in certain aspects, whether it's a public library, specialized library, or part of a consortium, they could be complementary partners to helping develop workflows and procedures or improving product level functionality, especially if that library has more experience or has been live on Folio longer than yours. Within our own context, we reached out to a few other law libraries to see and understand their approach with serials workflows. We even held a law serials demo over Zoom to gather feedback on procedures and get a better understanding of overall Folio functionality. All of these efforts point to a critical component to joining this community product, and that is advocacy. It's important to advocate for what your library needs, since chances are other libraries are facing the same thing. It's also important when working with a migration vendor to make sure you have the right people involved to advocate for all of the logistics and nuances that come with mapping, testing, and performing data cleanup throughout the process. In general, advocacy is a good mindset to have while working in an open source environment.
I spoke earlier about the challenges of serials in an open source environment. However, there is hope on the horizon for Folio. The collaboration work done within the acquisition SIG has led to the development of claiming functionality that will roll out in the coming months. A further collaboration between several institutions around the globe has led to the development of a serials management module, which integrates the claiming functionality and will have binding and routing capabilities as well. These are still very active development projects, though members of the larger Folio community have had the opportunity to see demos at the annual Open Libraries Foundation conference, WolfCon, as well as through the weekly meetings of multiple Folio interest groups. You can also dig into any of these by clicking on the links on the slide. While there are challenges in working in a system that is under constant development, there is also significant hope for the changes that are coming, especially when you are able to be an active participant in the process. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our session about managing serials in a next generation LSP. We're including our contact information in case you'd like to reach out with any questions.